Hi, and welcome to my kitchen. Today I'm going to make macaroni and tomatoes. My mom made this all the time growing up, and it was always different. It's basically based on having very few ingredients. So when we just went to the grocery store, she might have put green peppers and onions in those with this, and maybe even some fresh tomatoes, and we're like, oh, so good. Maybe even sometimes mushrooms. But basically, when we didn't have anything, it was just tomatoes and pasta, usually macaroni noodles. So, to feeling that well, I don't have much in the refrigerator or cabinet. So, I do have this organic grass fed beef. Grass fed, been really like so into this. And these are the kind of tomatoes that I have. This one is diced tomato and green chilies. This one, and I do happen to have some fresh onion that I can put. So I'm going to start just by sauteing that, boiling some pasta on the side, and then dropping the pasta on top just to keep it like low carb in that. Isn't that funny? Oh my gosh. Get the hamburger out, turn the heat on high. And this was a meal that we ate a lot growing up. Macaroni and tomatoes. You make it better when you have more ingredients. So sometimes it doesn't have meat. Sometimes it doesn't have fresh vegetables. Yeah, we grew up with a lot of kids and not a lot of money. So my mom made this a lot. Okay, I am going to season my beef with some onion powder and garlic powder. Do not put salt in yet, because salt is just going to bring the moisture and water out of the meat, and you're going to keep all that in there until you cook the fresh onions or any vegetables that you have that you might want to add to this. Oh shoot, put too much. Oh well. Again, this recipe is like always a little different because you make it just with whatever you have on hand. But it's a classic dish when I was growing up. Macaroni and tomatoes. You'll have to excuse me. I'm really nasally today because I'm sick and I just don't feel good. Well, now that that beef is sizzling, I'm going to chop up this onion. Okay, now that your beef has cooked on one side pretty good and it's brown, add your chopped onion or any other fresh vegetables that you might want to add. Unless you're adding mushrooms, you can add the onion and green pepper right now. But mushrooms cook a lot faster than these other vegetables, so don't add mushrooms yet if you're going to add mushrooms. Again, you don't need to. You can add, I like adding some fresh garlic too. Alright, so I'm going to let this cook and get completely cooked and soft and brown. And then I'll reduce the heat, add in the tomatoes, boil some pasta, drop it in, then plate it with some cheese and probably some fresh basil since I have that on my shelf today. Well, that is a lot of onion. I just didn't want to waste it, so today it will be with a lot of onion. I might just want to add some more tomatoes to kind of balance it, but it'll be fine. It's always different. That's the beauty. You can see I have my pot of boiling water back there for my pasta. Some of you might have known this as goulash. We were not that fancy. So it's called macaroni and tomatoes. Sometimes it has meat and extra veggies. Sometimes it does not. Alright, so you can see how my onions are getting translucent. The meat is about cooked all the way brown thoroughly. If some of you are using a leaner meat, add some extra virgin olive oil because it will have probably less fat, or you can also try to simmer them on a lower heat with some water, like kind of bring them to a boil if you're trying to avoid fat at all costs. I love cooking with extra virgin olive oil and grass-fed butter, so I'm not afraid of the fat. And this is grass-fed beef, which is actually a higher fat ratio than some of the leaner meats. But studies have shown that we tend to believe right now at the moment, my husband and I, that grass-fed beef is actually healthier for you because your cow was vegan. So you get to reap the benefits of your cow being a vegan with grass-fed beef. opposed to like, you know, some of these cows that might have been fed like nasty feed or grain. Okay, these onions are about softened and done. Some of them did get a little brown and caramelized. That's fine. Reduce your heat once it gets to this point. Add your tomatoes in. You can even use fresh tomatoes. You can use whole tomatoes, any kind of canned tomato that you have on the shelf. Today I am using a mix of tomatoes with diced chilies, tomatoes, and just a regular one. All right, so that's it. Reduce the heat on your, this is kind of like your sauce. And I like to add a little bit of butter and water and just reduce that heat. You might even want to add a little bit of chicken stock if you want it more brothy. And then you're going to boil your pasta, and I like to just drop a little bit in the bowl. And if you want more pasta when it's time to plate your dish, I like to keep the pasta separate. Okay, so I'm just going to stir in a little bit of the butter. Any butter you have is fine. I am going to add just a little bit of water to help these develop a sauce. And I like mine more soupy, kind of like that, but you don't have to do that. I do have some fresh tomatoes over there, so I might even add some of those in. Okay, so there it is. That's like the consistency. What I did was I just put these with water, dumped them in. That way I got every little last bit of the flavoring. Reduce the heat. I did add a little bit of butter in. And this is at the point where you can salt and pepper this as well. The last thing, some pasta, cooked noodles, and do them to where like right before they finish cooking before you add them in, because they'll continue to cook in this sauce. So macaroni and tomatoes coming up, or as some of you might know as goulash. Yum, it is smelling so good in here. I did put some more garlic powder and salt and pepper in this while it's simmering. My noodles are cooking back there. Remember, I'm going to take them out just a little bit and kind of stir it in. It will give it like a really good texture and really bond the sauce with the noodle. You don't want to over noodle this unless you're like ready to eat it right now and you're going to feed like a big group of people. So yeah, when I was growing up, we always had this. We had to go without a lot, so this was a cheap and expensive dish that my mom could usually always whip together real quick for us. There's like 5 of us, and it was macaroni and tomatoes. So this is my mom's famous dish. I'm sick, I'm at home, I want like a comforting meal. I don't have much on my shelves. I always try to keep canned tomatoes of all different kinds on my shelf. And then some beef and onions. So that's what I have today. All right, stay tuned. I forgot to say, I love you, Mom. I love you, Mom. Say that, overachiever. I said it twice to make up for the fact I forgot to say that. Yeah, I'm not telling you anything to like hurt anybody's feelings. Like we were poor sometimes. We weren't always poor, but most of the time we were poor growing up. It's just who I am, you know. And this is how I learned all these wonderful cooking techniques that I'm sharing with you. Okay, time to get some pasta out and add it into my sauce. If you don't have one of these, get one. It was like $2. It's awesome. So now that this has started to boil, I am just going to get some out and let them finish kind of cooking in here. And see, that's all I'm going to put in there. Just like one little thing. That's enough to make this like thickened up and more, that will flavor the noodles. Now that I did that though, I am going to raise my heat to a boil to help the noodles finish cooking. And I'm going to add a little bit more water because I like mine more soupy. You don't have to do that. Now, what I do have over here, I have this cheese that I'm going to grind up, like how they do that on top at Olive Garden. I'm going to add some of this for spice, and I happen to have some fresh basil. So I'm going to tear this up on top too. These are staple items that you should keep in your fridge on any dish. You can use it all the time. Fresh cheese or like a grated cheese and crushed red pepper. I always like to keep this around too. This is the spice the herb that I like to put on top of a ton of my soups and bread, and tomato, of course. So if you're into caprese salad, it's basil that is on that salad. That's the tomato layered with mozzarella and basil, and then usually served with like a balsamic reduction and some olive oil. Now, something else you should know if you didn't already know this, once your noodles are cooked, take any noodle that you do, any sauce, anytime. Try to just take some of this pasta water and mix it in with whatever sauce you're doing, because this is called marrying them. They need to get married. It helps thicken them, and then the noodle will actually stick to the sauce better because it has a starch in it. So I'm going to let these continue to just boil and cook just for a couple more minutes, and then reduce the heat again, and it's ready for plating. All right, time to plate. See, I like mine more soupy, especially since I'm sick right now. I wanted a more like soupy consistency and just like a home cooked meal, you know. This reminds me of growing up. My mom made this all the time for us. She never really did hers this soupy. She would actually have a way higher macaroni noodle because it was less expensive, and this is her macaroni and tomato. This is just my soupy version of that. So let's see what I do to the top of this. Okay, so here's my macaroni and tomato. I made it more soupy version. Now I'm going to top it with my freshly ground cheese. I put it in there, cut off a piece, squeeze it down, and then you go like this. And you go like this, just like Olive Garden. Say when. Keep going with that cheese. That's actually good for me, because I don't want it to soak up all of my sauce that I worked so hard for my broth. Crushed red pepper. I'm going to do a couple of that to open my nasals up because I'm sick with a cold. And then I happen to have some fresh basil. See, there's moisture in here, so I'm going to replace my paper towel. Keep these out of the fridge and put a paper towel around them. A few, like interchanging. That will help keep the life of your fresh herbs. So I'm just breaking some up, tearing it up. Oh, it smells so good. I can smell the fresh basil. So these are staple items, and this is just an everyday dish that you can kind of throw together in different ways. Looks delicious, huh? All right, well, I hope you enjoy. Zach, if you're watching this when I'm gone, it's all for you, babe. I love you. I'm sure you miss me when I'm gone. The rest of you, I hope you enjoy making this. So I wanted to show you how you can like please many different people with this dish. I liked my last one real soupy, okay? Now let's say the next person wants theirs mostly macaroni. I'm just gonna put it in this bowl that I made here. I'm gonna make a smaller dish because I do not like my macaroni. I just want you to see what it could look like. Okay, and I'm actually gonna go ahead and use this for my sauce. See, I put extra macaroni right there just to get flavored for my husband because I know he don't like his more soupy. And then look, go like this, put it on top. And do you see how it's like a different dish now? It's almost like, I don't know, it's so weird. Now this is more like a macaroni and tomato. And you can feed larger quantities of people like this. And so now this is pretty much what it would look like. Now it's not soup. And now you could again top this with cheese, basil, crushed red pepper. There it is. This is more like goulash, right? Or macaroni and tomato. Yeah, I just like to make mine different. Where'd you go? Where's your meowing coming from? There you are. Do you want macaroni and tomato? You do? All right.
Sign is sexy suppers and soups, because healthy is so sexy.